President Trump is defending Elon Musk's drive to shut down sections of the U.S. government amid legal challenges, transparency concerns, and questions over conflicts of interest. Trump says Musk's unofficial Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, would soon examine spending in the military and the Department of Education, possibly in the next 24 hours.
Yes, I have Pentagon, budget, education, just about everything. We're going to go through everything, just as it was so bad with what we just went through with this horrible situation we just went through. And I guess 97% of the people have been dismissed. It was very, very unfortunate. You're not going to find anything like that.
FBI has turned over a list to the Justice Department of the FBI agents who worked on the January 6 rioters cases. Are you planning to fire the FBI agents who worked on those investigations?
No, but I'll fire some of them because some of them were corrupt. I have no doubt about that. I got to know a lot about that business, that world. I got to know a lot about that world, and we had some corrupt agents, and those people are gone, or they will be gone. And it'll be done quickly and very surgically.
Mr. President, I wonder what you make of the criticism from Democrats that these staff reductions, the cuts that Elon Musk and DOGE are doing are an unlawful power grab. And is there anything you've told Elon Musk he cannot touch?
Well, we haven't discussed that much. I'll tell him to go here, go there. He does it. He's got a very capable group of people. Very, very capable. They know what they're doing. They'll ask questions, and they'll see immediately as somebody gets tongue-tied that they're either crooked or don't know what they're doing. We have very smart people going in, so I've instructed him go into education, go into military, go into other things as we go along.
Well, and to discuss this further, I have joining me from London, U.S. Republican strategist Greg Swenson. Greg, glad to have you join me on the program. Let's start with his renaming of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Is it just symbolic? What do you really make of it?
Well, I think it is symbolic. Yeah, that's I think the nature of naming anything, and in this case, it makes perfect sense. You know, even as a child, you know, growing up and learning geography, I never could figure out why it was called the Gulf of Mexico. So. You know, does it really mean that much? Is it going to change the world? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, because Britain says it'll keep referring to it as the Gulf of Mexico. For those in America, Google says it'll change it on the map. And for people in Mexico, it'll still be the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, they can call it whatever they want. I find it amusing, but it's just not that serious.
All right, well, let's look at... by law, what Trump is doing in recent times. By law, the Education Department can be shut down only by an act of Congress. And most experts agree Trump lacks the votes to do that.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he lacks the votes. I mean, I can't imagine any Republican arguing that the Department of Education should remain in place. It is part of the executive branch. So you might be right. It might require an act of Congress. But if the president and the Secretary of Education find that there's enough, you know, there are enough reasons to shut it down, and they have to go to Congress, they'll go to Congress. So it's clearly underachieving. I think education has been designed to be managed locally by the states, by local jurisdictions, and the education department is if anything just a barrier, or at best case a barrier to efficient education, worst case just a complete waste of money.
Yeah, while Trump is speaking and doing what he's doing, others too are speaking up. Democratic politicians, teachers teachers, and many parents call Trump's plan to shut down the agency an assault on public education.
Yeah, it's so funny to hear that from them. I mean, it's actually the opposite, right? Right now, public education is being ruined by the teachers unions. And so if public education was put back to the parents, put back to the local school boards, and at the same time, parents given the choice to send their children to alternative schools that might not be controlled by the teachers unions, that creates competition, first of all, but more importantly, the schools are much better at delivering educational outcomes. So look, it doesn't surprise me that the Democrats and the teachers unions are angry about this because they've been living off the trough of government spending, of wasteful government spending. So it's really well suited for both the unions and Democrat politicians who are paid handsomely by the union.
I think you kind of missed it there because I included parents. I said Democratic politicians, teachers' unions, and many parents, not just the unions, and the Democrats, even parents, there's many parents, are saying that's an assault on education. So parents are included.
Yeah. Well, it's a good point. I'm sure there are parents out there who love the idea of the Department of Education. Maybe they're under this illusion that the funding from the Department of Education to their public schools might be a positive thing, but it's not. It's as the more money they spend, the less outcomes are delivered. And so that's just sort of a myth. And I think parents, by the great majority of parents, want school choice. They want options for the children. And a lot of the states have embraced that, and it's been very successful. So instead of forcing children to go to really poor public schools while the teachers' unions are profiting from that, give the students an option. If they want to use those tuition dollars or the government funding for their choice of school, then great. And it's worked in the states that have tried it, whether it's private schools, Catholic schools, charter schools. It's a fantastic movement. And I think that's one of the reasons we want the Department of Education out of the way, because they are very much tied to the teachers' unions, which is, again, really destructive for children and for parents.
Now, education is mostly dependent on states and communities. The federal government just does about 13%, especially because of what you call peculiarities like the vulnerables, and then the question of human rights issues, and then low-income students.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Low-income students in particular have suffered under the weight of the teachers union. And if you look at cities like New York and Chicago, where the teachers unions prohibit, or they're able to elect politicians by giving to their campaigns and prohibit the expansion of charter schools or school choice, and the low-income students are the ones hurt the worst by that. I mean, J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, the mayor, they all send their children to private school. They all send their children to either charter schools or private schools because they can afford it. Whereas the students in the inner city cannot afford it. And that's why school choice, school options are so important especially for inner city kids. So it's really criminal what the teachers unions have been doing.
And then, of course, in the midst of all this, that comes what the judges are saying. They're saying, sorry, Trump, you can't do this. Well, you said, and the rest, you just can't do this.
Yeah, look, I knew there'd be pushback, right? It's very unsettling for people that have lived in the expanded, the unelected administrative state that has taken over the federal government in Washington. It will be difficult because they're bringing private sector mentality to the public sector. It's long overdue. And so, but it's not a surprise that the people that have been benefiting from this generous giveaway program, which is taxing people and then spending it on their sort of pet projects or spending it on these unelected bureaucrats, that's going to be unsettling, but it's absolutely necessary, especially with $8 trillion of new debt added to the deficit in the last 4 years. So, I think it's long overdue. For the most part, Americans are really happy about this. Of all the things that President Trump has done, breaking up the unelected bureaucracies and saving money, cutting costs, is polling higher than any one of his other policies. It's polling in the 60s. It's something we rarely see, any issue or policy polling that much over 50%. So the wind is behind him on this one, and I don't think they're turning back, even if there's pushback from the administrative state itself. Of course, these judges, typically people of the left, are pushing back against it. That's bound to happen, but I do think ultimately the shakeup in Washington is moving along rather well.
And you said pushing up against it. Are they not working with the Constitution? Is that
Yeah.
fair to the judges to say they're pushing up against it? Are they not looking at what obtains with the Constitution?
That's their opinion at that level of court. But I think ultimately this is the most constitutional thing we've seen in Washington. The executive branch is tasked with executing the laws. Most or all of these agencies are part of the executive branch. So he's well within his constitutional rights to do it. In fact, in many respects, the past presidents have neglected that responsibility because they just want
the
business to
ambits
go
of
on
the law.
as usual. And that's not why he was elected. So I'm not surprised to see the pushback. That's quite natural, but I don't think it will work.
Yeah, you say it's within his right as the executive, but shouldn't he do it within the ambits of the law?
Sure. Well, no, he was well within the law, and I think you're going to have different opinions on that, of course. But again, these agencies are in the executive branch, so he is under no obligation to spend taxpayer money that goes against either American policy or even the White House policy. So I don't think there's any real constitutional. I mean, there will be pushback again from these local judges. The first people you go to when you're part of the administrative state, you go to the local courts and you try to get a stop to it. But I think as it moves up the food chain of the court system, it'll be clearly constitutional. Yes, going to Congress ultimately is a good idea if you want permanent changes to the law. But in this case, with the balance of power in the United States, the executive branch has, a significant amount of power, and they're just using it here.
All right, we'll see how all this plays out. Thank you so much, Greg.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
All right.